This is Dan Dix here reporting for Press for Truth. And in case you don't know, my friends, Bill C-10 has recently passed through the House of Commons and is soon going to be voted on by the Senate and may soon become law. This, of course, is the controversial bill that seeks to regulate the internet and the free flow of information online. I've been covering this for quite a while. I did this video here. Feds want a leap of faith with the drafting of Bill C-10 amendments. What could go wrong? Or this one, censorship on steroids. The truth about Bill C-10 and the great Canadian internet firewall. And yesterday I tweeted this: Bill C-10 passed late last night while everyone was sleeping. How fitting. It is now on the fast track to becoming law. Our future of free speech is in serious jeopardy. And indeed it is, ladies and gentlemen, it is in very serious jeopardy. In fact, we're in crunch time right now when it comes to the battle for free speech in Canada. So, joining me on the line right now to help us understand the implications of this bill is the leader of the People's Party of Canada, Maxime Bernier. Maxime, thank you so much for joining us once again here on Press for Truth. Now, I want to get into the details of this bill and how it can essentially affect channels like this in the near future. But before we get into that, maybe you could start us off by telling us what was your initial reaction yesterday morning when you woke up to learn that the Liberals had whisked this thing through in the dead of the night. What was your initial reaction when you heard that?
To speak and our free speech on social media, and they did it, like you just said, they did it yesterday, early morning, and maybe this bill will be in force. I know that it's in the Senate right now. They will have to vote for that bill, but I strongly believe that this bill will come in force during the summertime. And that's a very bad news for Canadians because, for example, if you're very successful on YouTube and you have a lot of viewers, you may be considered like a broadcaster, and you're gonna be regulated by the CRTC, the regulator, and you will have to pay a tax, and the CRTC will be able to censor you or regulate you. So it's, usually before that bill, they had a clause in the Telecommunication Act, and that was precise, saying that that act does not apply for social media. But now that clause is not there anymore, and like that, everybody can be subject to be regulated by the CRTC. So that's why, the CRTC will look at you, but not only the CRTC, but the big tech corporations can also have an influence on what you're saying on social media. Actually, we have some censorship right now on social media by big tech corporations. Can you believe just in the United States that a former president of the United States, Mr. Donald Trump, cannot have a YouTube account, cannot have a Facebook account, cannot be on Twitter? He's not a terrorist. He's a former president of the United States. So they are censoring him. And now these big corporations, with the help of the bureaucrats at the CRTC, will try to censor you and us on social media. So that's very important that this bill must not pass. And if it's passed, we will fight. That will be an important subject at the next general election. As you know, we may be in election this fall, and the position is very clear for us. The PPC, the People's Party of Canada, is against that and will always fight for freedom and free speech.
Have you noticed that they seem to be trying to make it look like it's really just about regulating the tech companies, bringing sites like Netflix and these other streaming sites into places where they ought to be, more so than about regulating people like me? Do you find that as well, that they're trying to perceive this as if it's, no, we're not going after the little guy here, we're going after the big tech companies?
Yeah, absolutely. They're saying that, but if you read all the clauses together, the section of that bill, you can see that the CRTC will have the power and the jurisdictions to regulate you as a YouTuber or people on social media. So that's why this bill is very scary and is going against our freedom of speech. And that's the first time. That's the first time that the government will have the power to regulate social media. And it was always an exception. So when you have bureaucrats that will have more power, you can be sure that they will execute that. They will use the power that the government is giving them. And that's not a good news for Canadians.
No, exactly. But there is a slight glimmer of hope, I suppose, in the sense that this does still have to be voted on. So what are some of the things that we can do moving forward? Is it possible to get that clause put back in there? Or what are some of the ways that we can still defeat this thing before it actually becomes law?
Yeah, my advice would be to communicate with your senators in your riding, and because they will have to look at the bill. And right now they are looking at the bill, but they have only 1 day to do it. But I hope that the Senate will work this summer and take their time to have people that will commence the bill to be in from them in a committee, in a Senate committee. So that would be important for Canadians to be in touch with their senator and telling them or him that, they don't want that bill to pass. And the Senate must take all the time that they need to do a deep evaluation of that bill. And they will have the last word about the bill. I hope that after a deep consultation with Canadians, I hope that they won't vote for that bill. But we still have a chance that that bill may not be enforced before the next election. And I hope that the Senate will do their job and review the bill and having some hearings about that bill and letting Canadians to express their point of view. It will be very important. We will know that maybe in 2 or 3 days if they will have session this summer. I hope they will. And like that, we'll have another chance to block that bill and to stop that bill.
Are there things that the People's Party of Canada are planning to do here, or things that you can do personally in the near future to try to push this back? Because I know you've been a champion of free speech here in Canada. You've been, speaking at these anti-lockdown rallies, walking the walk rather than just talking the talk. You're essentially showing people how to practically express your free speech, even in times when they're telling you not to. So you've really been walking the walk. What are your plans moving forward? Are you going to continue to speak out about these things in the way that you are, because you're facing literally arrest and things like that?
Yes, I will. I will continue to do what I'm doing. I have the constitutional right to travel across the country, to do what is good for this country. And yes, I did a lot of rallies all across the country about our freedom and to be sure that we'll end these draconian lockdowns. The last one, as you know, was in Manitoba. I've been arrested, handcuffed, and put in jail like a criminal for a non-crime, just after having a gathering with 7 of my executives from the Riding Association over there in a public park. That's discriminatory, that's unconstitutional. I will be back in Manitoba. I will fight that. I will win that, because that's unconstitutional. But at the same time, I'll be in Ottawa the 1st of July. There's a big freedom rally there. This weekend, I will be in Niagara Falls. We'll have another rally over there. And at that time, I think it's important to ask the government to reopen our border, to be sure that people will be able to go to the US, and also the US citizens must be able to come to Canada. So that will be important to reopen right now our borders. And also we will do the fight for free speech. And another fight that will be important, it's a bill that the Trudeau government wants to table in the House today. It's another bill that will regulate hate speech and hate crimes. There's not, there's a legislation, a criminal code, and we have a definition of hate crimes in this country. We don't need another definition, and that can be very dangerous for free speech also. I don't know if you remember the Section 13 of the Canadian Human Rights Act. We abolished that when I was a conservative in 2013. And with that section, the government gave at that time power to bureaucrats to censor Canadians, and that was horrible for free speech. So we abolished that. But I know that the Trudeau government want to come back with a clause like that, maybe in the criminal code, maybe in another legislation, to have a new definition of hate speech that will be a little bit different than the one we have in the criminal code. And if you're saying something that the government doesn't like, it may be like hate speech. And so that's why altogether this bill C-10 and the bill that the government wants to table this tomorrow, that's very dangerous for our freedom of speech in this country.
Wow, this is remarkable that that this is happening, that they're just piling this on. With this new hate speech bill, do you think it's possible that they're starting to whisk this thing through because of what recently happened in London? Now, Justin Trudeau emphatically said this was a terrorist attack, when the facts have not even come out. He doesn't even know for sure yet that this was a premeditated attack. It very well may have been an accident. But do you think it's possible that they have used that event in order to whisk through this hate speech law because of the notion that Canadians are dealing with so-called Islamophobia?
Maybe, because if you look at the statistic coming from Statistic Canada and the data, 8 crimes in this country, if you look at all the crimes in this country, it is less than 1%. So that's not a concern. That there's no it's not so important that you must have a new definition of hate crimes when you have less than 1% of all the crimes in Canada that are hate crimes. So there's no justification. There's no reasonable justification to bring a bill like that. And I think they're playing politics, and they want to please the extreme leftists in this country. And as you know, Justin Trudeau said that in Canada, there is a systemic racism in this country. There's not. The only legislation that is a racist legislation is the Indian Act. And as you know, we at the People's Party of Canada want to get rid of that. That's a racist act, but there's no systemic racism in this country. And that's the leftists and liberals. They're not proud of their country. They're not patriots. We are. We believe in this country. We believe in Canadians. We have a great history. We must celebrate that. And as you know, 1st of July, there's some municipalities across the countries that they said we won't celebrate the 1st of July because, we're not a so good society. Everybody wants to come to our country. They want to be with us. They want to be Canadians. That's a great country. That's because we are a great country. So there's no systemic racism. There's no problem with hate crimes in this country. It's all leftist propaganda, and you can count on us to fight against that.
Yes, it absolutely seems that they are using these as excuses to shut down voices like mine and yours, and just to block the free flow of information online. So I guess in closing, what can channels like mine and Press for Truth and others out there who have a decent size audience and who are making a difference and who have a voice, but we know they're going to be on the attack. Is there things we can practically do? I mean, I'm focusing on moving on to more blockchain-based platforms and migrating my audiences off of YouTube and onto other platforms that won't censor me. But is there any bits of advice that you might have for broadcasters or YouTubers or anybody who posts social media out there who may be worried that this bill might affect them? What can they do?
Yeah, I agree with you that we must look, and I'm doing that also. We at the People's Party, as a political party, we have a YouTube channel, the People's Party of Canada /official. and I'm doing some interviews there with people. It's growing, but I will look also to another platform, because I don't know what can happen with YouTube. At least if I'm with a platform that believes in free speech and freedom, it will be a little bit more difficult for the bureaucrats to censor us. So my advice would be, look at another platform, and that's what I'm doing. It's very, very sad that we must do that here in Canada, but that's the reality right now. We're not free anymore on social media, on YouTube, on Twitter, and we have to look to another platform. That's what I'm doing right now. It's so important to communicate with Canadians when the government or big tech try to censor you. It's not helping our cause. We need to be out there. And that's why also I'm traveling across the country, meeting people, being on the ground, and speaking about what I believe: individual freedom, personal responsibility, respect, and fairness. And we're doing politics differently, because we're doing politics based on principles and ideas that we promote. And the more we'll be able to be in touch and in communication with Canadians, the more support we will have. It's why all these bills, the C-10 and the other one, it's not helping us. We need to fight against that. And I hope Canadians will understand it's always better when you have the freedom of choice of your news, freedom of choice of what you want to see on social media, because they can play with the algorithm, and you won't be able to see what you want to see on YouTube. They are blocking some of my tweets sometimes, and so it's scary. That's only the beginning. And if these two bills pass, that won't be the Canada that we know. We'll be in a new era, and that's not a good news.
No, that's right. Well, we're going to continue to fight this one, and we're going to be migrating onto these other platforms, but we need the people who are watching this to also do that. Follow us over to these other platforms. So that's a very, very important moving forward. I'm going to include links to your channels in the description below. I strongly encourage people to check it out and continuing to follow your work as you're moving across the country. So once again, thanks so much for joining us here today to break this all down for us.
Thank you. I'm very pleased to be with you. Have a nice day.
You too. Take care.
We all want truth. The truth will set you free.